Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Revolution gathering. Jay Bakker here with my buddy Brian Yarbrough. We're going to be doing a Q&A today, so we're in Houston, and I'm in Seattle, so via satellite. So welcome to the show. It
Broadcasting
says it's
worldwide.
recording 99%. I don't know. Don't know what that means, but Brian and me have been friends for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's getting up there.
So we met in New York City. I did not want to meet Brian because I thought he was a legalistic preacher. And my friend's like, no, man, he's cool. He's cool, bro. He's cool. And he was cool. So there we go.
Good times.
Yeah. You are a secret agent now, but before that, you were a pastor of Anchor Church, kind of a similar revolution thing, right?
Yeah, it was, kind of inspired. I remember when we used to, call ourselves punk rock churches. So same deal, met in a club here in Houston, on the north side of Houston. And, I've told you, worst mistake we ever made was getting a building. So it's,
Yeah.
we lasted, it's probably been 10 years since we shuttered, maybe a little bit less than that, but great group of people. And your friendship has been a huge part of what we've done. So shout out to Chipper for introducing us
Yeah.
many years ago, and got to speak at Pete's and go back to the New York days.
That's right.
So
You
that
just
was a lot of fun. And here we are.
Here we are. Now, how come you're recording at 99% and this is I'm recording at 48%? Should we be
Oh,
worried about that?
no. We'll
No.
just act like that's not a big deal.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either.
Or is it going to feel like
ignore it?
only recorded from here up?
It's just going to be your lips.
So anyway, sorry everybody. We're goofballs. We're old friends, and we got a lot of inside jokes. So that'll be fun for everybody. Everybody's favorite part of a podcast when they talk about stuff nobody knows about.
We got some good questions in over the past couple of weeks, but wanted to start with how was the New York trip? I saw this stuff on Instagram. You and I have talked about it, but give everybody the rundown on the week.
It was super emotional. One of the highlights, though, was I had dinner with Mario Cantone and his husband, Jerry. I actually did their wedding back when I lived in New York.
Oh, that's great.
And they took us to, what was the hotel? There's a restaurant in the Bottle Hotel. It's the Chelsea. We went to the Chelsea.
Yeah.
And, those guys are like, it felt like just being with family. I mean, it was so much what I needed. Like at the end of the time, I was like, guys, I'm so glad I was here. And I just started crying. Like I was just like one of those moments that I just needed to feel like I needed to be a human. And I wasn't thinking about other things. And, and Mario knows everything. Mario and Jerry are both like totally know everything about Broadway and stuff. And it was just, they were setting my mind at ease. And my girlfriend Jeanette was there, and it was a lovely meal. And, it was really, that was a real highlight. It was just something I personally needed. And so I was excited to have that. So that was great, but it was emotional. Like I got there and I saw them do a little bit of the Good Morning America. I went into Good Morning America, and it was weird because my mom's name is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because then the head producer like took me out to elevator, and I was like, oh, I said the last time I was here was with my mom, and she's like, oh, is your mom an entertainer? And I was like, no, my mom's Tammy Faye, and she's like, what are you doing here? We had no idea you were here. I was like, so that's kind of the thing is that it's like it's really bizarre, to be kind of a weird, like kind of an afterthought in your mother's life.
Was that
What'd you say?
Were you on Good Morning America in a T-shirt? Was that the picture that you sent me?
Yeah, that was the picture where I was wearing. My buddy gave me from my friend Kenny gave me that shirt. He's from Canada, Lethbridge, Canada, and he left it. And so I thought it would be hilarious if I wore it on Good Morning America. And my mom did not find it hilarious because it was cold, so I had a jacket on. And I took the jacket off, and she's like, "You wore a T-shirt on Good Morning America?" Like, yeah, it did.
I can only imagine your mom. Like, do you think she would have leaned into that? I mean, from what you've told me about your mom, like she wasn't like a notoriety seeker. So, do you think she would have leaned into that type of recognition on her, like of her life
Well, yeah, I mean, I think she likes getting the message out there, and I think that's
yeah,
most important to her. Um, I think if she saw the play, there would be certain parts that are like a little sexual that she would be like, "That's a little much, guys. You need to tone that down. I know what you're doing there." Um, because I mean, they have fun, and at Christian, they kind of have fun off like how Christian worship music can kind of sound like love songs to Jesus, of
yeah,
course, or like overtly sexual. So of course that's
yeah.
there. Um, but I think she would ultimately be really touched by it. So then it was really wild because we did that, and then everything was coming up, and I was just so torn. Like I was like, I'm here. I've seen it. This will be my third time seeing it, but first with all the bells and whistles, and the cast is so great. But then you've got all these different people like managing you around and telling you what's
Right.
going to happen and what's not going to happen. And you know me, I'm not like I don't love that. I don't love to be controlled or told what to do. So I was a little like, do I? I mean, I was a wreck. I had to just like go through all the emotions,
Yeah.
and then when I got there, I was so glad I was there. It was so great. I mean, the Kate, the woman who plays my mom, I mean, her voice. I honestly like when I go to musicals. Sometimes I'm like, the song's kind of long. I'm like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I need to hear a song about what you just talked about. And she was like a rock. It was like a rock concert. I was like a. It was like she was. I mean, her voice. I could tell she was given 110%, and it was
Awesome.
just. And Michael, the guy who plays Jerry Falwell, has become a friend of mine, and uh, he really grasped Falwell's voice. Yeah, I mean, I've been in a room and met Jerry Falwell and talked to him for like a good hour, and he really like can tell he studied it. So it's really wild to see like such, because it's a musical. So you think, well, I mean, they do play fast and loose with the story,
Right.
but it's just wild to see how some of the actors really were like, no, I'm going to capture parts of this person. I'm going to capture their cadence and things like that. And honestly, like the second half of the play, you know, is she changes a little bit and she looks a lot more like my mom in the second half of the play. And so I really felt like I was with my mom for a minute. I mean,
Oh wow.
I could feel myself like this desire to call out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
mom, and it's something I don't you know. It was really like a very surreal thing. I mean, you're also seeing like some of the most heartaching break moments of your
Right.
life, seeing the things that like changed your life forever, done in a different weird kind of way. So it's and we're
You
having
mean
people
the trauma
laugh.
of your youth set to music?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have like people laugh at like different moments that were very traumatic to you.
Yeah.
Takes a lot. Like when I saw the Eyes of Tammy Faye at the premiere, I had to leave like 15 minutes early because I was just like, seeing this as an audience is
Yeah.
too much for me. Um, but this, I was able to sit through, and there was a standing ovation, which the cast completely deserved. And but I just kept looking back at all the people and thinking like my mom was able to look down and kind of see that of a celebration of a life well lived.
I love it.
Which means a lot because my mom, I mean, she pretty much died alone. My sister was
Yeah.
taking care of her, and that last like 6 months of her life, she moved out to gosh, what's that area called? It's on the border. It's in Arkansas, but it's also like Kansas City. It's kind of like they're kind of like which state is it?
Yeah.
Um, but so and my sister had to had to go home for a couple days, and then I was on the stoop waiting to see my mom when she passed away. So she was literally
Mm.
like with her husband and one friend.
Wow.
And so in the play that she passes away in the play in a very kind of beautiful way, and to have that kind of like closure you don't always get. So I mean, it was so surreal. And then like all those pictures I've been posting with all the celebrities and stuff.
I know.
I mean the real like, of course, Elton John. Like, so there's a picture of me kissing Elton John, but he kissed me first. He's like, "Hello, darling, so good to see you." And I was like,
I'm
And he's like,
going in
are
for
you,
it.
and he's always asking me, are you happy? Are you okay? How are you doing? You
Oh,
know? And so that was really kind of like, you could tell he genuinely understands who my mother was, probably more so than anyone else.
hmm.
In that in this in the world, in some ways he really gets it, you know. And he does a
Yeah,
lot of work with AIDS, so he's
yeah,
always having to him and his husband have this AIDS foundation, the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and so they have to work with liberals and conservatives and things like that, so they're always
yeah,
having to move between all those worlds. And he knew that that's what my mom did as well. And you know, it's like, well, you might still be political, but you have to live that way to, you know, keep that private, because you want to continue to be able to help people, all people.
right.
And so it was really beautiful to have that moment with him. And then, of course, Michael Stipes was there. So
I'm
first of
so
all those
jealous.
pictures with the famous people happened in like about a 30-minute, 45-minute range. So it wasn't like I was
Yeah.
like hanging on, hey, it's so good to see you. Hey, good to see you. You know, I mean, I did wait at the end of the red carpet to say hi to Alec Baldwin. I just wanted to be like, hey, man, you're hilarious. And and he goes, oh, you're her son? Come back. We got to get a picture. I'm like, go to grab my phone. He goes, no. And he pulls me back out on the red carpet. And I was like, oh, we got to get pictures with everybody. So that was for
So
real.
cool.
But but I mean, that was all, it was all happening like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I didn't even realize Roseanne Cash was there till the next day, which is wild because my mom
Oh,
sang with Johnny Cash.
right.
And I met Johnny Cash because he was friends with my dad. And so that was really, so I wish I would have seen her. But the thing is when I saw Michael Stipes come and walk the red carpet, like I took a picture of him on the red carpet and like, I can't believe he's here. Because REM was such a big part of like my high school years of really going through the hard times and listening
Yeah.
to his music. Like I don't ever, especially in New York, you don't really chase famous people. You just let them be.
Right.
But I was like, I got to go say hello to him.
Yeah.
And I saw him where he was sitting. And I just went, hi, you know, Mr. Stipes. My name is Jay Bakker. I'm Tammy's son. He goes, oh, and he got up and, you know, talked to me and talked to Jeanette and just sat there and told us some stories and took pictures with us. And then he posted the picture we took together on his stories twice. I'm like, and
Oh,
it almost was one of those things that felt like, you know, it was almost like my mom intervened in a way of like, hey, honey, I know you were skipping school and listening to REM, you know, so here's Michael Stipes for you.
you,
And he told me he
I,
recorded the first two albums in the same
that's,
studio my mom recorded her albums in, and
yeah.
that they both preferred the same microphone. Like they
Oh,
both liked the sound of this one microphone in the studio. So it was, you know, it was like one of those things that you just, you know, I mean, I would have been probably like not even know who REM was when they were recording those albums. You know what I mean? And it just to
right.
have that all kind of come to, you know, the year 2024 was really, really surreal. So yeah, it was a
I,
crazy night, and then they had an after party, which originally I thought was going to be a meet and greet with like, you know, maybe 100 people, and it was just insane. It was at
oh, really?
yeah, it was at the what's it called on the green? It was
Oh, yeah.
Tavern on the Green,
Tavern on
and
the
so it
Green.
was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Beautiful.
And I ended up sharing a car with this really famous critic, and then this with this woman, probably in her 70s, who was a Jack Kerouac scholar. And I went and saw like this big exhibit when I lived in New York, and she was the one who helped put it on, and she was amazing. I ended up spending most of my time talking to her. There's a picture of us on Instagram that I put up, and she was just so fascinating. And then she said, you know, she was really kind to me. It was like one of those things where I just, because I'm so introverted,
Yeah.
and like all these Hollywood people who are like, hey, baby, hey, you know, she was really cool there. And the cast, you know, I met a lot of the cast last time I was there to see rehearsal and do some staff stuff with, I met some press stuff with them. And they were all just so kind to me and so great. And just like, I felt like, you know, I felt like one of the group with them, you know. We all had I mean, just had so many great conversations and met people's families who were in the cast, you know what I mean? Like met cast
Yeah.
members' families. And, you know, it was so different than the experience I had with like the Eyes of Tammy Faye movie, where it's like, you know,
Right.
Hollywood people and all that. It
Well, I
just
think
felt a lot more
the,
natural and
these
human.
this group of people seems, you know, I've told you this before, but when you go to those things, it's like you're having to relive your trauma, and like people are obviously they're making something that's dramatized off your drama. So I worry about my friend. Like you're going to have to be in these spaces and think about stuff. But this cast and this group and the people that facilitated the making of this show just seem to have the understanding of the kindness that's required, because it is your mom's story, but it's also
Yeah.
your story, and it's your sister's story, and it's your
Yeah.
dad's story, and it's so many the people that were there with your parents and at Heritage USA, and like it's so many people's stories that they showed a lot of compassion for the people that were there, and I was really glad to see that. And of course, I'm glad you brought up the microphone, because you got me choked up when you
Yeah,
mentioned
that was.
that like hit me dead in the heart, that
And I
your
guess
mom
he
and
also.
Michael Stipe in the same microphone. It just it's still incredible.
And I guess one of the PTL employees came down and brought him a copy of the book Run to the Roar. And
Oh
that's I just
wow.
started reading that book. I ordered a copy on eBay and just started reading it. And it's funny because he said, yeah, he's like, yeah, it was this book about fear. And he's like, it ended up being really this great read that was really
Gosh.
inspiring. So yeah, it was just, yeah, it was, it was nuts, and it was crazy. It was a whirlwind. And, I mean, there are also tone deaf people there, who are just like,
Yeah.
like, oh, get this peasant aside, kind of thing. And you're just like, this is my mother. Her name is everywhere,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need you to be like royalty, but it's also like, I don't think folks often realize like it's so being so connected to your mom and my mom
Right.
that it's like
Yeah.
it feels like when people are that way, it almost feels like the people are saying you can't be a part of your mother's life. You're not special enough. You're not good enough, and you're just like, I mean, I just remain quiet. I don't say anything, but there's a little like weird feeling there. But I guess that's just the reality of that's show business, baby. That's show business.
Well, I think
You
a
know,
point needs to be made too, is that you're not, like, for a lot of people that don't know and may not know and may be afraid to ask, you're not profiting off of this. This is
no,
Jay Bakker production. You're not
nope,
getting money from this. Like,
nope.
this is your family and your mom's legacy that you are a part of, and you're not being compensated for it,
No.
because it was made by other people, and there, I guess, are rules that govern that. But
Well, no, and they also got the rights from my mom's husband. So,
which I mean they would have had to do, but
yeah,
it's one of these things with, like, I think when people think about supporting revolution and supporting you, I think there is like this. And even though I know that you are constantly saying this is a ministry, we're looking for help, but I want to encourage people to know that, like, I, knowing Jay Bakker, I know you are not jumping in the Bentley every day and going off into the streets of Seattle. So selfishly, in order to keep the work that you're doing, I want to encourage people to support regularly this ministry. And I'm going to do it so you don't have to do it, Jay, because I'm a supporter of Revolution. I love you. I want to see you continue to do the work. And I know that makes a big difference on what you're able to do, not only for yourself but for your kids, for the Revolution's ministry community,
yeah,
as a whole. Like, I would love to see. I think that you have and your family have sacrificed so much, in terms of advocating for other people and reaching out for other people, and just being an ally for so many communities, way before this was commonplace. Like, your mom's position and your position, and you carrying on the legacy of being an ally for people that were marginalized, was so far advanced. And I know that you paid a price for that, and I
no,
know
I
that
mean,
I'm probably being, I know you don't like to talk about that, but I'm going to say that, for the rest of the group, that I want to recognize the sacrifice that it takes to be at the forefront of that type of movement. And when you came out, as affirming and really becoming an ally for the LGBTQ community, like, I know the impact that took on Revolution, and now everybody else, that's like a selling point, like a
right.
church. And I mean, you and I have talked about how much that pisses me off that you're not recognized at that, but we won't get into that. It's not about me. But I want to take, if people, so can you just real quickly before we get into the Q&A, just remind people how they can support you, you personally, or Revolution, and the ways that they can give, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Yeah, they can just go to revolutionchurch.com. We have a Venmo and we have a PayPal, and you can donate. It's tax deductible. If you want to send a check, you can just send me a direct message on Instagram, and I will give you an
Blank check.
address. Yeah, blank check. If you want to send a blank, we prefer blank. That would help. Or a money order or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like, it was weird, like, being at that thing, and I was like, I went to New York, and I'm like, I have $80 in my bank account. What am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, how am I going to do this? And, so it was like, that's just the reality of it. I took a picture yesterday. I was like, turned my car on, and I'm like, now I'm collecting lights that are slowly all coming on my.
When you get them all, it just reboots and it's a brand new
Yeah,
car again.
yeah, it's fine. Got to get them all. So, I mean, the reality is like I'm working a lot of different, jobs, and now all those jobs are drying up, trying to get hired. I can't believe it. Like, I thought it would be like when I was a teenager and I could just go get a job at the Gap, and they'd be like,
Right.
hey, we want to hire you. And I've never been turned down for so many jobs in my life. It's ridiculous. They're like, pastor? Then I'm trying to change it to like, I run a nonprofit. Try to manipulate the job. Trying to get AI to make me sound cool.
Well,
but Revolution really does need the support. I went out, and when I was out there, I met with the guy who does all of our finances in New York, and he's like, "Do you think this will help raise money for Revolution?" I'm like, "Probably not." I didn't say that.
Not holding my breath there. Turns out red carpets don't pay a ton of money.
so yeah, it was. And he's like, so can you do, I mean, he's like, you should do a video from here. So, I mean, right after I had lunch with him, I went out to on the New York street. I'm like, hey, everybody, just met with our accountant. I feel like I work for my accountant more than anything, because they cost money too. Like, I have to pay them. Absolutely. And often they get paid before I do. So sometimes anyway, that's the ins and outs of it. We don't have a lot of support. Back in the day, affirmingness, we had like a foundation that gave us money, and then I guess the foundation decided they didn't like gays, so not enough to accept them wholly. You know what I mean?
I wonder how they're doing now.
Yeah, I know. I thought about writing them a letter, being like, "Hey guys, have you come a long way?"
Yeah, no joke.
I probably should.
I think,
but anyway, so yeah, we can really use the support. I mean, it's nerve wracking. I mean, I live nervous about what's going to happen to the ministry and everything all the time. I've never been in a place like this. Like, I've never had to make fundraising videos like this before. I've never,
right.
I mean, there was a year I went 6 months without being paid. You know what I mean? So you just, but I could at that time because I had another job that I was doing. So right now I'm just, work is really sparse. I'm hoping to maybe sell some Christmas trees. I mean, literally work at a Christmas tree farm next month. So we'll see what happens. So, you got to just stay grounded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to go to an event like that and be like, but I mean, it was like the next day was completely grounding because I'd had like my schedule given to me, and it said I was flying out of Newark. And I got in the car, and the guy's like, so JFK? I'm like, nope, it's Newark right here. So he drives me out to Newark, drops me off. And I usually check in the night before, but the night before was the premiere of the Tammy Faye on Broadway. So I check in and it says JFK. So then I have to call the Tammy Faye on Broadway people, who are all tired and exhausted from this huge night, being like, hey guys, I went to the wrong place. I mean, luckily they had done it and it wasn't my fault, because I don't know if I don't know if they would have been so happy to get me a ride over to the other airport, which ended up being like an hour and a half because of traffic. And so I missed my flight, but the folks, they took care of me and put me on another flight, and I got home, but it was automatically like, oh, okay, back to reality.
You didn't get dropped off at the private jet, let's say.
No, that's in the shop, I guess. But yeah, it was cool. It was a great time. So there you go. There's my sob story. But no,
No,
I
it's.
was so grateful to be a part of it. I had such a great time. I was glad Jeanette was there with me. I mean,
I'm glad she was
it,
able to
it
go.
was, yeah, I mean, it was, she really helped me work through a lot of my emotions and things. And it was like, it was like, it was insane and it was great. And it was a nice break from reality.
Good.
And, but man, I got back with my kids and we went to like this crazy trick shop yesterday. I mean, we hit the ground running and we had a blast, and they had a
Good.
museum for rubber chickens, and who doesn't love a rubber chicken museum, so I'm back. I'm back. So this is like the longest introduction to a Q&A ever.
No, I think that's good because I think a lot of people saw those videos from New York and were like, what is this actually like? There was a question that I think it is funny to start with, being that you, within the past week, have been shoulder to shoulder with Elton John. But the question is, what does Elton John smell like? And I can only imagine that it's quite good.
He smells like God, uh, like world peace, like the tears of a child, morning, the dawn of a new day.
It was, I love the picture of you giving him a kiss and seeing he and David and you together was very, very sweet. So
It's
I'm,
really great. It's so funny. Like, I know David, but whenever David is with Elton, he has to be on, like, just there. I mean, Elton's like royalty. So it's like, and they're having to protect him. They're having to get. So whenever I see David, it's so funny. It's like we talk more on text message than we
right.
do when we see each other in human. It's just like, hey, hey, we're real people. And then he's got to move. But he's been so great, and so like both of those guys have been so self-conscious. I mean, conscious and not self-conscious, but conscious of Jay and my feelings. And
That's a
I think that's
beautiful thing.
rare to have anybody of that stature be like, to care about the family. Because often these projects don't really care about the family. So that was really, really awesome. I can't honestly, I can't remember what he smelled like. Probably a little like makeup, a little bit, because we both had a little makeup on
Okay.
for the thing. But I was so excited, and it was it was so just like fast. Like I saw the picture of
Yeah.
me kissing him, and I could barely remember it. All I remember is he kissed me first, so I thought, well, if he kissed me, I better kiss him, because it wasn't like a mwah, mwah. He was like, Jay, mwah, So I was like, well, I better kiss him back. And of course, that's the one I've seen online. I mean, I took that picture from online. I didn't have that picture. I was like, oh my god.
Tattooed man attacks Elton John with smooch.
I'm in love with a man. Remember those shirts? And
Oh,
his name
that's
is
right.
Jesus. His name is Elton John. That's going to be my next
Sir
shirt.
Elton John.
Sir Elton John.
Sir Elton
So
John.
he's incredible. I mean,
That's awesome.
his life impacted mine. And when I went through some really dark times as well, and it's funny how much music means to me in my life. It's like when I went
Yeah.
through my divorce, there were a couple of Elton John songs that I just kept on repeat, and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat to kind of just help me get through that era, and losing my
Yeah.
mom as well. So it was like I was able to thank him for that, and that was really, I mean, I'm sure they hear that kind of stuff all the time, but for me, it's just the fact that you're able to be like, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
I have gratitude for your work. Like
Right.
it's it met me at like one of the darkest spots in my life. So yeah, to be able to do that with him and Michael Stipes, that was just like crazy. I was really hoping that like Sisters of Mercy were going to show up, but they weren't there. Chuck D wasn't there, but maybe next time.
Chuck D. He was going to the Friday night
Friday night, yeah. He
showing.
likes to go the second night. It's a little less crazy.
Yeah, it's a little toned down. It's more of his vibe. Well, you mentioned music being such a part of your life. One of the questions that we got in, any new music? So it specifically says new music or artists that you recommend. So I know that you and I both have our roots grounded in stuff that's 20 to 30
Not
years old, but is there
yeah.
anything new that Jay Bakker recommends?
Um. Well, I mean, I'm not like I don't know like
Maybe
this
even a
week.
new release.
Well, I'll tell you, no, the bands that I really like are like the newest bands I really like. As I really love Sleaford Mods.
Oh, yeah.
Like those guys are my favorite. I've actually kind of connected with Jason, the singer from that band. But even if I hadn't, they're like one of my favorite bands of all
So
time right
good.
now. So it's really cool to find like a band that's like up there with all the other bands.
Yep.
I mean, like Emile and the Sniffers. I like her. I think I'm saying that name right. Emile and the Sniffers.
Yeah.
I really like them. Their music right now. What is it called? Fountains or DC Fountain? Something DC Fountain band. I can't remember the name of the
Mm.
band. There's another really good band I like. There's another band called Viagra Boys. Lovely
Hey.
name. They're not making, it sounds like they'd be making like crank calls with the Viagra Boys. It's the worst
This
band
is
name
Ding
ever.
Dong and the Viagra Boys on
Yeah.
97.7 the Edge.
But I like those guys. Yeah, those are probably the newest bands I like. There's this, I sent that song to you, but it's not a new band, but I sent
Ooh,
you that song
yeah.
from Boy George and, what's the other guy's name?
Who was it? It's in my playlist right
I
now.
know. Now I'm like literally feeling like I've totally destroyed my credibility because I can't remember his name right now.
It'll come to me. But while I'm looking that up, what is any favorite albums? That was another favorite album right now. I I know the kids don't listen to albums anymore, but
um,
oh, Peter Murphy.
yes, Peter Murphy, of course. So why would I forget? Peter Murphy and Boy George song is
Yeah.
great. I mean, it's favorite albums always change with me. Like my two favorite albums of all times is probably Prince's "Sign of the Times" and then George Michael's "Listen Without Prejudice" are probably my two favorite albums, which people wouldn't probably believe. And probably the Sex Pistols, "Never Mind the Bollocks" is probably up there too, and probably 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang Clan and "Fear of a Black Planet" by Public Enemy. But those are some big ones.
Yeah.
PIL,
Oh yeah.
Flowers of Romance. I think that's the name of the album. That's another one I really like. So yeah, I don't, UK Grimm, by Sleaford Mods. Those are albums that I've listened like on rotation. You know what
And
I
end
mean?
to end. Yeah. I think that's like I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, when you got an album, you'd you know, you and I are the tape and then the CD generation. I mean, I
Yeah.
have plenty of records now, but like that wasn't really our thing. But you listened, unless you had a Walkman that had an automatic rewind. You're listening to that motherfucker like all the way
Yeah.
through, and then you're slipping it out and you're going the other side. Like I really love an album, and I understand that like a lot of that's not the where the music industry is now, but like I love an album. I like a concept. I like
Yeah.
it to be
Too.
cohesive. I love stuff like that. And I love it when a band goes a new direction and makes something beautiful, but it's cohesive and it's new and it's like thoughtful. That's not to say that like there aren't some bangers from
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
artists that
I've been
just
listening to a
release a
lot of
great
like
single.
different singles from Everlast from some of his older
Yes.
stuff, like,
Yeah.
and that's pretty good. Yeah, I was trying to think. There's another album that I really really like. The new Cure album is like fantastic all the way
Oh
through,
yeah.
and so is the new Nick Cave album. Those
Oh
are two
really?
like, yeah. Oh
I haven't
gosh,
listened
it's
to that yet.
so good. It's so good. So those are some albums that you can go all the way through. I
We
love all
better
these
move
deep
on
theological questions.
if we go more into if we go more into music, this is going to be the longest podcast that
Yeah,
exists.
that's true. That's true.
Let's knock off some easy ones. Let's go. Once read that you led a church in a bowling alley. Do you still do that? I know the
No,
answer,
that's a no. But we
but
did.
that was in Minneapolis, and the
I've
name of
yeah we've that was Minneapolis' Bryant Lake Bowl,
Bryant Lake Bowl. Okay,
and they had the theater. There was a theater in the bowling alley, so it wasn't like they were like.
so
So we had a
Atlanta,
bowling.
yeah. So Atlanta was in a club. Remind me the name of the club.
Well, Atlanta was in a couple of different places.
Oh,
We were first like at this like homeless ministry in just their upstairs around their offices.
mm,
Then we were in a place called If Coffee Shop.
okay.
Then we went from If Coffee Shop. We went to the Star Bar for literally one service, and then we got asked to be able to meet at the Masquerade. So we met at the
Masquerade.
Masquerade for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then we met at the Earl for a little bit, which was another bar in East Atlanta. Right at the very end, we met there. It's amazing. Like even like the, after I made my little announcement, the church really just went, really shrank. I mean, I was like, I was having like 150 people to like, 13 the last week I was there, I think.
Wow.
But then I, moved to Brooklyn and was able to do more there.
And in Brooklyn, was it only Pete's? Was there
It
something
was only
before
Pete's
Pete's?
Candy
Only
Store the
Pete's?
whole time.
I
That
love
was
that
great. I
place.
lived in the same
That place was
apartment the whole time.
so cool.
It was great. I loved everybody there. We had such a good time. Everybody who worked there was great. They were always
Yeah.
very understanding. If I had to do some sort of like weird interview or thing, they'd be like, "Hey man, if you want to come in early, you can do it here."
So cool.
And then they would like throw a barbecue for us once a month in the back. Like they would
Oh,
provide the
really?
food and stuff, and we would always so we'd be having hot dogs and hamburgers, and we were like, well, that was our communion. Yeah, and they took it. Like, they took care of it. All we had to do is tip the bartender. So that was a different thing. That was really amazing for us,
I
to
love
be able
that
to.
area. And then Union Pool on Monday nights, like that's where we met. Was
With
at the
Vince.
Union Pool thing where Vince was playing.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah. I think
still, I don't
we
know.
met at Black Betty before Union
Oh,
Pool.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we were Vince Anderson does these Monday night kind of all gathering gospel. What are they? He has a name for it. That's
Dirty Gospel.
Dirty Gospel. And Vince is incredible in his own right.
He has there's a documentary about him right now.
So funny.
Look for Reverend
I have a
Vince's
picture on my
documentary.
phone of his playing card where he's water skiing in the jumpsuit, like the evil.
He's in an American flag gi. Like a karate gi, and he's water skiing.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked out Vince Anderson, it's a part of the Revolution legacy, and he's such a sweet dude and was very, very nice to me. And so then we go Minneapolis in the bowling alley. Now we're in Seattle.
In my house.
in your house, which is not a bowling alley.
No.
So one of the questions that we had is, do you plan on staying in Seattle for the future? How do you think, like going from Atlanta, we go to New York, we go to Minneapolis, we go to Seattle, like do you plan, like when you look to the future?
I mean, Revolution started in Arizona, and we've also been in LA. So
I don't even know about LA.
Yeah, LA was for like a year, so we're not very stable. No, we just want to spread the gospel, brother.
Trying to hit every state.
Yeah, every state. We're going to do all 50. Coming to your town. So, no, I mean, I moved here because of my kids. My my ex-wife and I have wonderful kids, and I wasn't digging the snow all the time, and she had family out here, and I said, listen, I'll go to Seattle with you. No, I mean, I'd only visited with her. I've never really even hung out in Seattle all that much. So I'm out here. I haven't really met a whole lot of people, or I've met some people. The Seattle freeze is a real thing, where you it's hard to break into this area.
Yeah.
Even with like pastors, like I've gone out and met with like different pastors and people, I'm like, oh, I think we're going to have a great relationship and never see him again. And I get it. I mean, I understand life is hectic and it's busy. I had one where I thought was going to be really promising, but then I really think I pissed off one of their assistant pastor because of my something I said, because of how I think about identity politics, and so that was over. I've had a lot of like really weird experiences, with mainline. I've really tried to like reach out to the mainline, but I've got an MCC pastor friend out here named Brian, who I've really connected with, and I'm going to be speaking at his church next month, and I'll post that up where it's going to be. So I'll actually be speaking in an open church, an MCC church, next month. So I'm really excited about that. And we've been good buddies. We go out and have like a drink and chat, and so he's my buddy out here. But yeah, most of the time I'm spent with my kids, and if I'm not with my kids, I'm reading and studying all the time. I just got in some new books. I'm trying to see if they're here. They are here. So I'm going to let you look. Why don't you talk to the crowd for 1 minute?
I will confirm that Jay's kids are two of the most hysterical kids that I've ever encountered, and we we haven't been together in a little while, but we're trying to
We're
get
trying
a
to.
reunion from Texas. And I'm looking forward to seeing those two.
So I
What's
just got this book
okay?
and this
That
book. This is volume 2. I hate when they have 2 volumes, and I really hate when they're this big, and I really hate when they're super dense and super boring. And guess what? They're all here. It's all dense and super boring. But the point is it's called the theory of communicative action. And my hope is to teach people how to. This guy's an excellent, excellent person on bringing people together, even people who hate each other. And in my work for peacemaking and things like that. So people are like, well, what do you do during the week? Well, if I'm not mowing lawns and cutting down trees or painting apartments, I am being very bored to death. And every now and then I'll take a break and I'll turn on the old tube here, the old
yeah,
television, and I'll watch a little bit of The Blacklist or The Fugitive, the old show The Fugitive, which is pretty awesome.
I do I do like that show. Well, that
It's so
brings up
good.
you kind of stepped on one of the questions, but so
Oh,
in your reading and in your study and in your experience, one of the questions was how do you dialogue with people who delight in societal forces you consider destructive? How you like that one? We went from music to a pretty heavy concept here.
yeah. How do I do that? I do that every day.
Right,
Because I am so not a binary thinker. I do believe like in gray areas, and and so many often I have even people who I usually agree with tell me like this subject has no gray area. But for me to have no gray area is that there's no hope. And so I always live in the idea that people are not my enemy.
right,
Ideas are the
right.
enemy. And so I deal with that constantly, whether I'm with the most conservative or the most liberal person. There's always something that comes up. And I'll give you one example of recently someone I met with who was just in person, who was just devastated by like a lot of us are about the state of politics right now,
Right.
you know. But instead of offering my advice, telling them what they should do, I just listened. And there were certain things where I was like, nah, I don't know about that. But I didn't say, no, I don't know about that. I just
Right.
listened. They just needed to be listened to. My opinion wasn't really needed at that moment. And, and they've reached out to me with some really cool information that they got on some of the stuff that they were thinking about. So sometimes it's just listening, knowing when to listen and knowing when to speak.
Mm,
Um, sometimes if I see an argument's not going anywhere, I'll just hey, I don't think this is going anywhere.
right.
Sometimes if I really feel like I'm losing my temper, I'll say, hey, listen, I'm getting kind of angry, and I don't think that's the best way for us to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Can we move it down a little bit, or can we move this
Yeah.
private, or can we do that type of thing? Um, that's it's tough. I see a lot of people who are very worried right now. And one of my friends is like, well, I think some of those people are just suffering from mental health issues. I'm like, well, I think everybody's suffering then because everybody seems
Right.
to be really nervous. Um, Even some of my conservative friends seem to be kind of like, oh, what did we do? So, so you live life on life's terms, man. Life is
That's it.
tough and it sucks. And, you know, I take seriously like why the Christianity. Well, I mean, I take seriously like loving my neighbor and loving my enemy, but I also take seriously like love never gives up. Love needs a freaking nap sometimes. Love needs to get angry
Yeah.
sometimes. I mean, that was one of the great things when I was in New York and having Jeanette with me was that I was able to be like, I'm not going to the premiere tonight. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to. I had to just like let all those emotions
Right.
of my that I was going through and somebody to just listen.
Yeah.
So you learn that every day. And I think, reading books is really great to do that, but also watching how people who really love you respond
Mm,
and learning from that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, oh, they let me do that. Then going like, well, maybe I could try that with a stranger. you
And
know. So it's not easy work, but you're really good at that, Brian.
I don't know, man. I don't know about that, but I try. I think that, I mean, this goes into the next question. Someone asked, "What do we do when more than half the voting population has bought into all the hate?" And I just don't. I don't see it as just hate. Like, yes, there is hate involved, and we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there is hate involved. There is racism. There is misogyny. There, I mean, there are all those things that are involved, but again, going back to, and this is one of the things that I'm fascinated by between what I tell you about your life. It's like your capacity to have empathy for other people in the place that they're at. Like, nobody comes out of the womb as a misogynist or hating other people
Yeah.
or fully racist. Like, we get to these positions because of the situations that people are in. It's not a justification, it's just a reality.
Yeah.
And
It's just a
and
reality.
and to scapegoat and say, well, it's, it's uneducated, and it's these are people that are out for their own self-interest. Again, there's nuance to it. There's maybe part
Well,
of
yeah,
it
I
is
mean, I
just
had to reach out to a friend the other day who posted something like, "On all their children are going to be hateful and dumb and blah blah." I'm like, "Listen, man, that's crossing the line. Like,
that's
you
it.
can't, you can't, you don't know how these people parent their children.
That's
You don't
right.
know that, you know." But it's like when you're, it's like it feels like everybody's making decisions when they're afraid and angry, and that's what I try not to like. In my and they call it HALT in the 12-step program. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? You know, it usually means get to a meeting and don't make a decision.
That's
Halt,
right.
stop.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of that happening. And I mean, honestly, and people are so pissed when I say stuff like this. They're like, "You're just," I mean, they get pissed at me, you know. And I'm like, "Okay, well,
Well, it's
you
just
can
not
be
the
pissed at me."
answer. It's not the answer
Yeah,
to just go and hate somebody else. Like, because now we're at an impasse,
yeah. We
and
don't want to
let's clear
return
that.
the favor. You know,
Exactly.
John Hume. You know, when he was in Belfast, you know, to those to the Protestants and the Catholics, you know, he's like, the only way we're going to fix this is if we fix it together. And I
That's
think that seems like an impossible way to go. But, you know, for me, I was raised in so much crap and so much conflict and so much negative energy that for me, I feel like my work, you know, I almost am able to thrive a little bit more within that. Not that that's a good thing. It's just the reality. Once again, the reality. But for me too, though, is realizing like, I think we have to think about this is a lot of people weren't voting because they hate certain groups of people. You know,
sure.
a lot of people were voting because 60% of the people in the United States live paycheck to paycheck. They 60% of the people in the United States are skipping meals so their children can eat.
Right.
I am one of those 60%. People are selling their plasma, which I've honestly considered quite a few times. Um,
Right.
I know I did not vote for Donald Trump because I think he would solve that. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of people who aren't thinking about world events or aren't thinking about identity politics. They're thinking like, well, how is the person who's in the same group that's been here for 4 years going to make my groceries and my gas
That's
more
exactly
affordable
it.
so I can get to
Yep.
work and so I can just live and I can take care of my children? I think we want to jump to this like everybody's hateful and crazy, but some people are just thinking of, well, how do I? And some people say, well, that's selfish and that's American nationalism. But at the same time, I watched a lot of my friends, you know, on the left stop talking about Gaza and what was happening there
Yeah.
because they were worried that their candidate wasn't going to get in. And so they said, well, we have to ignore this horror right now in order to
Right.
focus on that. But when we ignore the horrors of international, then we become nationalists. So it was just like we all become nationalists and we're all mad at each other. And, you know,
So complicated.
I think America is at a very low point, and I think
Yeah.
we're going to continue to get lower over the next few years. Um, but what we need is we need more. We're going to need MLK type of people. We're going to need John Hume type of people. We're going to need Tammy Faye type of people.
That's right.
You know, we're going to need Coretta Scott King type of people
Yeah.
in this world who really dedicated their life to nonviolence. And when you live in nonviolence, you'll realize that it's probably the hardest thing you can do. It's a lot harder than giving somebody the finger. It's a lot harder than blowing up a place. It's a, you know,
Yeah.
you know, Dr. King said, "Thank God, you know, I don't have to like my enemies, only love my enemies," because it's really hard to like people who firebomb my house.
That's
You
exactly
know,
right.
and I think, you know, we always want to say like, well, they don't understand what it was. I'm like, their house was firebombed. John Hume was a Catholic saying we got to bring everybody together. And as soon as he started meeting with the leader of the other side, guess what his fellow Catholics did? They firebombed his house with his family in it.
Yeah.
You know, so this is the type of thing of like life and death type of thing. And, you know, we're watching this, like, how do we ignore, like, we're literally like, our world's falling apart, but how do we ignore, like, watching Gaza's, you know, maybe this is too political. I don't even care because to me, it's just about human beings. If it was happened to Israel, I'd feel the same way. But how do we
Right.
watch these people, kids caught under rubble? Their homes are completely gone. They don't have water. They don't have food. They don't have anything, you know, and we're worried like people are going to be, and people are thinking, oh, there's going to be internment camps and things like that. But that's already happening somewhere else,
Right.
you know, and we're just kind of like, well, sorry, guys, it's a political race and it's really tight and we got to worry about ourselves.
Right.
You know, I think that's a problem. I mean, I know it's humanity, but there's a problem where we're often so focused on our own issues and our own stuff and our own thing. And I know that when I'm around people who feel that way, who are selfish, it's usually like being around someone empty. And it makes me think of that verse in James where he says, faith without works is dead. I used to hate that verse, hated it. Martin Luther, the reformist, hated James.
Right.
But what I mean, but if you follow, listen, continue to listen, he goes, and you walk by someone who's hungry or in need or cold, and you go, eat well, stay warm. You know, that's what he's saying. He's like, when we don't care about others, our faith is dead. When we just see our enemy suffering and we have
That's
the
it.
chance to destroy them, you know, nonviolence says, I'm not going to do that. Nonviolence just isn't the fist, it's also the tongue, and also helps train the mind to think about people differently. And we're going to have to put on our civil rights leaders and our justice leader pants for the
Yeah.
next 4 years.
Have to.
And it's tough.
And and
Sorry,
it's
that was a
not a
long
simple
answer to that
solution.
question.
No, it's not a
No,
simple
there's no
solution.
simple solution, and it's progress, not perfection. You
That's
know,
right.
no one's going to be perfect at this ever. I'm not asking anybody to be perfect at that. It's I still get angry. You know, there sometimes where I'm a total hypocrite when someone steps on my toes about something. You know, and then I have to go back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot what. And I'll tell you, when you talk about arguing well and grace all the time, and you do it with you don't do that with somebody. They are very quick. That's what you say. Everybody will say you're a grace person because they're very quick to be like, I thought you were the grace person. I thought
Yeah.
you argued well. You don't seem to be arguing
I'm
very
still
well right
human.
now.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
so just say that and then everybody will call your ass out on it. And then you just go like, oh.
It's the turn the other cheek concept. It's like,
Yeah.
it's right for you. It's right for you, not right for me. And you should be doing, you get baited into those conversations. We are at currently 52 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time.
No, if you have enough time, let's just get all these out.
Let's do it. All right. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna run
People
through.
can come back later. They can listen later. If they're listening to the podcast, they can
Perfect. I want to
listen
get to all
later.
of them because we still have some good ones. Give me some rapid fire favorite Bible translation and why.
New Revised Standard Version is my favorite because it's not the easiest to read, but to me it seems to be the closest accurate. But that's like such a hard question to answer because they're
Accurate.
like all are accurate for different reasons. Like some have you know. But I
Yeah.
read the New Revised Standard Version. I grew up reading the Living Bible because I could not understand the King James Version. And then the New Living came out, and I really liked that for a long time. But
Yeah.
it's just not very consistent. Like a lot of times when I quote verses, it'll be the New Living Translation that I'm quoting rather than the NRSV. But the NRSV I find to be the best, and that was the one I would recommend. And if you want one that's got good commentary, I recommend is it the Cambridge commentary? I think it's the Cambridge
That's the one you've
commentary.
recommended to me, I believe.
Yes, that's the one I recommend. Get the latest volume, and you can get it paperback really cheap if you want paper. If you want leather, then you're with commentary. It's going to cost.
All right, another rapid fire. If you could have revolution anywhere, let's just say anywhere in the world. Let's make it interesting. If revolution could meet, I mean, theoretically, right now you are anywhere and everywhere in the world here
Yes,
on
that's
the
true.
internet. But if you could be home base revolution anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Okay, that's kind of I got two answers for that.
Okay, I think I know
One,
one of them.
sorry, your quick fire questions are
No, it's
backfiring.
good. Keep going.
Okay, Well, the first one I got from the eyes of Tammy Faye. Like, oh,
Balloons.
all my balloons just set free. Sorry, everybody. Um, the first one I realized I was doing with the eyes of Tammy. I mean, the Tammy Faye on Broadway,
Mhm.
and because I was watching my parents have a conversation in musical form and talking about when you have. The funny thing is, we all like to piss all over televangelists, but we're all televangelists now. We are all, everybody has their what is that thing people raise money with now? It's called
Oh, they're not their Kickstarter, but their GoFundMe.
no, it's not the
No.
GoFundMe. It's the other one. It's called it's like a name. It's like when a rich person supports you. You know what I'm calling? But it's the name of it. And like, don't forget to support my thing, and you can get
My
special
Patreon.
videos on.
Patreon.
Yeah, don't forget my
Yeah,
Patreon,
that's what it is.
special videos and things like that. There is no difference than being like, if you send $1,000, you're going to get
That's
this love
true.
gift,
No, that's
or you're going to get
so
my
good,
special
man.
book.
That's so
So,
good.
hey, hello, hypocrites!
That's
Welcome
right.
to the real world. We're all televangelists. We're just using technology, just
I
like they
love it.
did. Okay, but one of the things my mom said that Kate said. And the thing is, like, we can have, if by being on TV, it's like someone can go to church anywhere. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the sin is, what their thoughts are, what they're going through, what their house looks like, what their
Yeah.
day is. You can meet them right where they're at. So that's one reason I like being online
Yeah.
now, and why I'm not so heartbroken that we can't afford to like have a place.
Yeah.
Um, I knew I'd become a televangelist one day. And two, I think I would probably be, if really anywhere in the world, it would probably be Belfast.
I know you love
It
it
would either
there.
be Belfast or back in Brooklyn, but I think probably Belfast because I really love the people there.
Yeah.
And if my kids could be with me, and that would be great. It would be probably hard to be that far away from other people, but that would be in a perfect world, and that would be a place that I really love because I can walk around that city. You can do all the
Yeah.
stuff. You don't need a car.
It's the
Rent
reason
is
for the
nice.
private jet.
Yeah, a nice private landing place. I can put my yacht out there. No, but it's like it's just easy to get around,
Yeah.
and the people are great. They've all lived through Civil War, and they all have wild, really sharp sense of humors that it's acquired taste, but it's lovely. I just that for me would be like, oh, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to grow old. This is when I do my thing. And the funny thing is, I would be even more so of an outcast there because I was still like, oh, he's kind of religious, That would still be
Right.
still weird. It's almost weird to everybody I talk to there,
Yeah.
you know. Even guys who were religious, they're all not religious. Even Pete, is like did a different weird area. So everybody's like, oh, you still read that Bible of yours. I'm like, yes, I shall stand for the Bible. But yeah, so that's where I would be.
All
I
right.
don't have to add any more of that because I keep
No,
making these answers long.
that's good. A couple on. Did you ever go to? I don't know what this is. I didn't look it up unfortunately before. Carowinds as a kid.
Carowinds, yes.
You
So
did go to
Carowinds
Carowinds. Give
was
a
a
short
theme.
description.
It's a theme park. It's like a Six Flags,
Okay.
and it's right next to. It was just like one exit from Heritage USA.
Oh, whoa!
So people
You
often
were
think that,
spying.
people often think Heritage USA was a theme park. It had now my dad did have plans to one day do something like that, but there was just a water park there.
Yeah.
There were no rides. I mean, there was a
Right.
train that went around a lake,
Yeah.
but it was like a tiny baby train. So you're like, oh, there's the
Yeah.
lake, and you could take it to get to different places. And there were trams and stuff, but it
It was
was
like a
more like
retreat, right? It
it
was
was
like
more
more.
like a retreat. There were like
Yeah.
hotels. I mean, I think my dad's concept with doing the water park was, you know, there's like 75 different services a day happening here, and kids hate that crap,
Yeah.
and the people aren't going to bring their children here if there's not
Right.
anything fun to do. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of the idea there. Um, so yeah, but Carowinds, they would have they would make we had a PTL staff day at Carowinds every
Oh,
year.
cool.
And that was really cool. And I had 1 or 2 years, I had a summer pass.
Yeah.
I remember that my favorite ice cream in the world is they had a Smurf Village there, and they had this blue ice cream. And I've never been able to find anything I like as much as that freaking Smurf ice cream. Um, so
I
that
love
was
it.
really, really. Awesome. Yeah, so I went to
So,
Carowinds.
okay, so the other question is, what's your take on other Christian theme parks that spawned after Heritage USA?
I only know of one that was like the it wasn't really a theme park, it was more like the Holy Land experience that like TBN did.
Yeah,
And I thought that was tacky. And I think if my dad had decided to do something like that in the future, older Jay, even if I hadn't stayed, would have been like, this is tacky. We can't
right.
do this. This isn't, let's,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might have been able to dodge a bullet for him there, but who knows?
All right, we're gonna go. Let's do. How many tattoos do you have, or have you lost count?
That is my nephew, James Chapman, my sister's son, who was also pretty much raised by my mom for a while. Like
Yeah.
the last kind of couple of years of my mom's life, she lived in North Carolina right before she got really sick. And James and Jonathan both were there, and we had such a great time. I mean, it was like the family was, it was like I was with the boys, I was with my mom, I was with my stepdad Ro, who I really got along with, and it was he really respected me, and that was really great as well. But anyway, I think my last count was 78, but
Oh,
I think I've lost count.
I have no, I have no
I
clue
have a
anymore.
three-legged angel that I got with you. For some reason, you have a two-legged angel, and mine has three. And I should have known when the artist said, "Stop moving," that they made a mistake. I'm like, you draw on people for a living. Why would moving? Remember that? Me
It's a
sending you that
story.
picture the next day?
It's a
It's still
story for.
three-legged because the artist passed away.
if you ever,
So,
if you ever get it, if you ever get it changed or covered up, I'm gonna be really disappointed.
no,
But
I
can't
know. At the
confirm.
time, I was like trying to figure out how to fix it. And
No
now I'm
way.
like, no way. I got to keep that third
It's the
because
best story.
yeah, so that
Jay and
worked
I do
well.
have matching tattoos, and that is a good story for another day of me being.
Yes.
The origination is me basically being a total douchebag.
I don't even know how that happened. It's like you've only been a douchebag once.
I do remember it, and I'm not going to bring it up here. Favorite comic book character and favorite comic book hero specifically. Another one from James, and why? So it has to be a hero, not just a character. I feel like I can guess this
Batman?
one. It's Batman, right?
Yeah, Batman.
I
Yeah.
have got. I'm
I
gonna
mean, a
step on your.
close second is Wolverine, but it's pretty much Batman.
It's Batman, and you. I hope you're going to incorporate into a message soon the rise of Batman from Jay Bakker, because we had a really nice talk on that the other day, and that really got me
Well,
thinking.
there's a podcast coming out called Between Us with an analyst, a psychoanalyst, and I where we really dive deep into that, and I'm going to share that with everybody. And it
Oh,
is
that's incredible.
I never really had talked about it too much. I used to make dioramas, like Batman diorama sets. So I one time gave a talk about those at this
Yeah,
thing called Christianity 21. But besides that, I haven't really shared too much about that. So yeah, well, I'm very excited about that coming out.
I can't wait for that, because I thought that was eye opening for me to hear you talk about that. Favorite? Do you have a favorite Tillich sermon? Tillich sermon.
Yes, you are accepted by Paul Tillich. It's in his book called Shaking the Foundations. You can Google it right now, and it will change your life.
I love it.
You are accepted by Paul Tillich.
This
That
is
was from Trip Fuller, right? He's such a
yes, it sure
nerd.
was. Yep, I love
He's such a theology nerd.
it.
Now
uh,
there's this woman who does all Tillich. This woman who does all Tillich. She does a Tillich podcast. I'm going to be on soon, so I'm really excited.
yeah, I've seen you post
Yeah.
about
So
her.
I'm going to hopefully be doing a podcast with her soon because I'm really excited about it.
That's
She's
fun.
awesome and
Uh,
hilarious. She's awesome and
this is
hilarious.
probably the last of the soft punches here. If you could have a tour of three bands to go with you on a Grace is Anarchy tour, who would they be? Grace is Anarchy.
God, to have three, that's such a tough decision.
Only
And
three.
it would be really, I would really have to speak first because everybody would be really disappointed if I was the headliner. I'd be like speaking to empty rooms. Hey, Grace is Anarchy. Because the bands I'm going to pick are really big. If it in reality, it would probably be like if in the real world, like our world right now, it would
Yeah.
probably just be like the Huntingtons and You know, maybe Squad 5 gets back together, and maybe
Yeah,
Mike
yeah,
Herrera would show up and do his solo stuff because
yeah,
MXPX would be too big, or maybe like David Bazan in the real world.
yeah.
You know, maybe a few different people would show up, but in Fantasyland, I think it would be. This is a hard one. This is funny because you think this is a soft one for me, but I think this was honestly when I saw this question, I thought this is the hardest out of all of them to give you where my priorities
I know.
lie in the world. And so this is where I'm at. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a try. It's going to be Sleaford Mods,
Yep.
Public Enemy,
Yeah.
and PIL.
Woo.
So John Lydon can talk shit and take the piss out of me while I'm there. Those would be the three there. If I could, if Sinead O'Connor was still alive, she would be on that list and replacing one of those
Yeah.
bands. And I won't say which, but she would be there
That's
because like
awesome.
Sinead O'Connor is probably my favorite artist of all time. I don't think she made one bad album. Boom.
I agree. Oh, this is another one that's probably light before we make the final stretch into the end. Do you ever watch some of the old PTL shows? And if so, what do you think?
I have not watched any of them complete, but I've seen clips every now and then on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, I recently saw one that my mom, the last thing my parents ever did for PTL was a farewell thing. Jerry Falwell, they asked Jerry Falwell if they could make a farewell talk,
Yeah.
farewell little video. And he said yes. And of course he edited it and manipulated it. But my mom sings The Sun Is Gonna Shine Again.
Oh, I know. I've seen
Our
this.
whole world's gone. And my mom's still like,
I know.
you know, someone asked me when at the, it's like, were you ever like when your mom was crying, like, Mom, just cut it out? I'm like, really? Actually, it would be the opposite. It was like sometimes she was like too positive and I wanted to be like, cut out the positivity,
Yeah.
or, you know, not wanting to get in trouble after I got home too late after curfew. Those are the two things I wanted her to cut out. Because she would always be kind to people. She never met an enemy. And so that always that sometimes as a child drove me crazy. And now it's like she's become a hero to me, which I always looked up to my mom, but she was my best friend. And now that she's
Yeah.
gone, she's reached a different status in my life. So there's that one. But, you know, the other thing I noticed is that my dad is just completely broken. He's just looking down at his legs the whole time, trying to pretend like he's looking at his Bible. But I know he's just completely done.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the shows. I mean, some of them are hokey and silly, but they're really fun. You know, like I remember, you know, they had like the Simmons, Richard Simmons on once. And he's like,
Yep.
all right, stand up, Christians, Christian. You know, he's like, oh, I'm a Christian. Sure. Stand up, Christians. I'm like, well, usually Christians don't say stand up, Christians. And she interviewed like Nell Carter. And I remember Nell Carter saying that she is afraid to go on to any Christian stuff because she felt like Christians were so mean. You know,
Yeah.
so I look back at that
Yeah,
stuff
that's
and go, like,
real.
it was really valuable and important. Like, of course, like some of the theology makes me cringe, you know, but ultimately I'm like, wow, this was so much better than all the other stuff. I'm really surprised my parents were the ones who fell, you know, because they weren't like hellfire and brimstone, but I feel like they were more of like a scapegoat for the hellfire and
Yeah.
brimstone. So it's wild. I've never watched that. I've never seen the Gems. Usually that's what people ask me, that show, the
Oh, yeah.
something Gems, just because that would be too hard for me to watch. You know, I
Yeah.
spent my whole life watching well, from 11 till this point in my life, I'm
Right.
watching my parents be mocked. When I went during the middle of the play, you know,
The
where they
intermission.
stop
Yeah.
the intermission, I had to go to the bathroom and it was a huge line. And I remember I was just kind of humming to myself because I was trying not to listen to what people were saying.
Mm.
Not that the people were saying bad things, but I was just like, if someone says something horrible about my mom or something like this, I don't want to
Right.
be triggered. I don't want to say
Right.
anything. You know, somebody was saying something to me because they thought I was a stranger, and Jeanette was with me and she's like, that is his mother. Well, I was like, calm down, girl, calm down. You know?
He's back.
Yes. Can we edit that?
Well, I did that.
Okay. Sorry. Do you know how to put those two together?
I don't, but I'm going to find out.
Okay, sorry, Pete called and destroyed
Oh, no worries.
our thing.
Oh, that's what it was doing. That's why it says do not disturb on there.
Yeah, now we
It's
learn.
all right. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So we got, you had just finished saying that Jeanette,
Oh yeah.
like, that is his mother.
Yeah.
So we can go from there.
Yeah. So yeah, so what's the next question? So Jeanette defended me. Everybody, I'm just going to make it clear. We have a weird edit because Pete Rollins called and ruined our talk, but don't worry, we took it out, and we're going to go on to the next question. That's why you don't have to be like trying to be like, yeah, you've never edited anything. I've never edited anything. So now you can just be like, yeah. Awkward edit.
That's right.
Intermission.
All right. Next one. Since you mentioned your dad and your mom and how they've been mocked and all that, how's your dad doing? Sorry about that. We technical edit.
I was losing battery and we weren't recording, so now we're back because we're 80. Because we're kids, we were teenagers in the 90s. Your technology confuses us.
Are you recording now?
It says I'm recording. It says you're recording. It says the whole freaking phone is recording. So there you go.
We're doing it. All right. So you mentioned your parents, and there was a specific question asking how your dad was doing.
I don't know how he's doing very well, to be honest with you. He stopped talking to me over a year ago. I did get a call the ending of my kid's school year last year that he had 10 days to live.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you helped me with the flight to get out there. And then unfortunately I had no money to pay my rent, and it was either be homeless or go see my dad. So I decided to,
I know.
So I always am grateful that you helped me out there. I guess, I don't know if you wanted that public, but some strange anonymous donor helped me, who's very kind and Christ-like. I couldn't get a hold of him. I couldn't talk to him. So it would have been literally like it was really a hard situation where it was like, well, even if I had the money to get the flight and the rental car, I'm also going to have now get a hotel. It was a screwy situation. Right. He ended up doing better. But he had a couple strokes. I've seen pictures of him where he's thin. He doesn't look great, but he cut me out of his life. And I always it really is painful, especially for my kids. And I think my hope is that, like, by sharing that with other people, that they will not be so quick to shut their parents and their kids out over political issues, even though there's like social justice issues involved in that. The one thing why I always stayed connected with my dad when people sometimes would demand that I denounce him was because I knew that I could have conversations with him that nobody else could. And he's my dad. And I have kids who I want them to know their granddad, not his politics, but just that they're loved by their granddad. And they don't have that right now. So it's really hurtful. And so I'll just say that's my 2 cents on that type of thing. You might feel different. Your boundaries might need to be more than mine. But if just something to keep in thought, that it affects everybody involved when we allow ourselves to be separated over these issues rather than being willing to have difficult conversations. I think that's also why therapy and counseling is good as well. There you go.
I know how much you love your dad, and I appreciate that. Well, that's a hard dynamic for sure to navigate, and so
I'll always be grateful for the time we had in prison. And being able to be with him there, and we had really amazing, very transparent, very brutal, honest conversations, and
as only prison can bring.
Yes, and so I'm God works in mysterious ways. I think Freud said you look back at the times of suffering one day with great joy, and that's one of those moments where I look back with like, that wasn't too bad. Or even when like doing Christmas in the hotel with my mom and my sister after the visit with a tiny baby tree, even those moments bring joy to me. So there you go.
Good. There's a question about, after Spacey played your dad in Fall from Grace, what were your feelings during his own scandal? I guess meaning Spacey's own
Yeah,
scandal.
Spacey had that big scandal.
Yeah,
If I probably would have been a teenager and it would have happened around that time, I would have been like, yes, because I didn't like the way he played my dad, and I felt like it was
yeah,
kind of manipulative. And I remember seeing an interview where he really mocked my dad a lot, on Johnny Carson. But I don't dance on anybody's grave anymore. I know humanity
yeah,
is horrible, and we're all judging on what other people say and what's happening, and it's hard to make those judgments, and it's really sad. I watched a little bit of that documentary about that, and I felt really horrific for everybody involved. I think one thing I've noticed, like even after seeing the Broadway show and seeing and reading every like musician and like reading a lot of musician and film people's biographies and autobiographies, is that fame and money don't fill the void. They don't fill the
mm,
lack. That lack is always
mm,
there. And I think sometimes when we get famous and we have money and everybody's around us and things like that, that
yeah,
we find our unconscious finds sometimes, like going, well, it's not, I don't have to worry about my bills anymore. And I don't have to worry about this
right,
anymore. And I don't have to worry about getting into any place anymore or doing much anymore. But so
yeah,
then your mind kind of goes to darker places of like, well, why do I still feel empty? And most of those films and everything we've always seen is it's usually the people turn to drugs or sex or these type of things in a very unhealthy way. I mean, that's a story as old as time, and so I think
yeah,
he just had a lack that he was feeling in a very unhealthy way. And I don't think we realize sometimes how unconscious is very powerful and causes us to often do things that are against our best interest and our own goodwill. So I
yeah,
I felt bad for everybody involved in that.
yeah,
I just don't. Good guys and bad guys are movies.
yeah. I agree. The next question is: the world seems to reward bully tactics. Certainly, currently, it does. How will love and grace ever get us through? How will love and grace get us through, Jay Bakker?
I have to answer that. Um, I mean, it seems pretty hopeless, but
I
that's
know.
that's when I feel the most alive in some ways. So they'll get us through. It might take 10, 20, 30 years, but they get us through, you know. And we're looking at politicians and they're all bullies, man. It's like,
Yeah,
if we don't think like just because we have bullies that are more, our bullies are more tolerant, you know. As long as you're American.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah,
very
for sure.
tolerant of the folks in our own country, so
I
it's
know.
like we're always, that's the thing is we don't often ignore the nuances and we just go like, well, the bullies that bully us, we don't realize that
Yeah,
sometimes our heroes are those people that we're behind are bullying others and causing suffering for
yeah,
a lot of other people. Um, and we're on the side of those bullies. So I think love and grace
it
is
takes
all that,
time.
that's always the point of love and grace is to help those, and nonviolence is to help those people see like, hey, this is the error of your ways. Is it going to be easy? No.
Yeah,
Are we going to be able to do it with our politicians? Well, I don't have any, meetings with anybody in the government right now. Maybe that'll
right.
change in the future. But right now is that we do it with one another, and we do it at one person at a time and one day at a time. And we also make sure
I
that we
agree.
take care of ourselves as well, because this stuff
Yeah,
gets so hard. If you get in that halt moment where you're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, you're not going to respond in a way that's going to be helpful. And then people will see you as a bully. That's what I don't think we realize, that sometimes that these people on the other side, them, think that we're the bullies. And so we have to figure
yeah,
out, like, how do we take a higher road? But not everybody wants to take a higher road. I mean, that's why there's a freaking been so many productions done about my mom, because she loved in a way that other people didn't expect it. That's why we have movies, and
right.
that's why there's statues of Dr. King and things like that, is because we go, oh, what they did was amazing. And I feel like now it's like to be like, well, what they did, they were still human beings and they were still very flawed people. I know my mom, she was very
Hmm.
flawed. I know enough about Dr. King that he was very flawed. These are flawed human beings doing these things. And I think it's for a time to realize is to bring those are better angels, is how I see those people. And, how do we become the better angels as well? And it's not impossible. And don't let people tell you it's impossible. That's the thing, is we've acted
That's
like
right.
it's like some sort of like, magical thinking to be kind and positive, and also to work for social justice and work for equality. But when we're working for equality, I always try to check myself. I'm like, am I working for everybody's equality?
Mm,
Because religion is,
mm,
am I working for those people to not like certain people or to have those convictions? But I mean, that's the hard part of equality. If we want it for everybody, so it's, and we live in a country that's where everybody's, freedom of speech and freedom of thought and freedom of
mm.
opinion. And, at the moment we try to make everybody think the same way that we do, we're no different than like the conservative Christians who's like, you're going to turn or burn, so
Right.
we ask for, we ask for tolerance, but then when it's, we often don't like to give it, because and then you can realize why it's so hard for the other people to be tolerant, because how they
Yeah.
see us, people think differently. And that seems to be a very hard lesson for us to learn.
Well, and if we were to solve, I love the HALT acronym, because if we were to solve people's hunger and people's anger and people's loneliness and the fact that people are just flat out exhausted, maybe then we're in a better place to have that
Correct.
communication, that dialogue. So if we can work on the baseline issue,
I mean, could you
like if we
imagine
can
if both
solve those
parties were
things,
like, we're going to make sure you have a
the
livable wage that you can
just the
eat,
basics.
you know?
I know.
And I said that in a podcast not too long ago, and they said I was like I was dreaming of, like, what do they call it? Like when you're like a utopia. That's a utopian thought. I'm like,
Yeah.
people being able to eat, have
It's not,
affordable
it's
housing
achievable.
and jobs where
It's
they're
achievable.
paid, and maybe
It's
insurance that
achievable.
actually helps them go to the doctor. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think that's impossible. And I think if we all had that, these conversations would seem less,
we're we're the most wealthy, powerful nation in the world.
you know,
It's achievable. I agree in that level of hope. Absolutely, for sure.
that's the type of thing. If
Um,
I believe that's where equality really lives, is if we were able to have that equality for all people, then
yeah,
our disagreements on identity politics and being, what makes us human could be probably more civil conversations. But when you're just
I
stressed
agree.
out and you're like, I can't even pay my bills, and this person's
That's it.
telling me how bad their life is, and I feel like I'm suffering, but I feel like I'm not allowed to suffer or say anything
Right.
because of my identity, then it gets
That's
into
it.
a weird, people start to get defensive, and it doesn't go
Yeah.
very far.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, we're going to continue down the tough questions, but the next one is, how do you cope with grief? It says, not a religious question, coming on a year of my mom being gone.
Yeah, I know who asked that question. I mean, it does, as time goes by, it gets a little bit easier, but it's never easy, like,
Mm-hmm.
and grief brings up so many emotions. What I think the thing I learned the most is to allow myself to grieve,
Mm,
and not really let anybody's opinion of my grieving be in the way. Except the one
wow.
opinion I should have listened to was telling me I needed to be able to grieve. And I
Yeah.
didn't, kind of, for the first few years. I kind of jumped into relationships and work, and then eventually I had to face the fact that led to some really bad mental health.
Right.
So I would say grieving is very important. I mean, I was grieving, I grieve at these things when people bring my parents into the limelight again, and if I'm not involved, I grieve in a different way. Like, I feel like I've lost my family,
Mm,
or and then they're celebrated, and I grieve in another, like, why didn't you celebrate when my mom was,
right.
dying? Those type of things. And it's okay to feel those things. There's going to be some people who might be offended to the way you feel. Well, that's their business. That's not your business. If they're, let
Right.
them deal with that. But you got to deal with
Right.
grief, and you've got to let that grief happen and remember that person. I mean, I have a giant painting of my mom in the hallway, and my kids know so much more about their grandma than even their living grandfather. And I have
Yeah.
pictures of her, and and I'm not afraid to, like, live in her shadow at all. I just she was a wonderful human being, and she was full of life. And, I'm glad that other people share that opinion with me. But yeah, I mean, you got to grieve, you got to be angry, you got to cry, you got to take time. I'm definitely not the healthiest person in the world when it comes to that, but I mean, therapists helped. and things like that. But there's, it's tough. I mean, you got to let yourself
Yeah.
grieve. That's the best advice I can get is let yourself feel those feelings.
And I think we all live in the shadow of someone that
Yeah.
came before us. Absolutely, all of us have someone that made that impact on us, and have to grieve that loss. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's taking that time is important. Um, this one, the next one is, where do you find intersections between psychoanalysis and your theology? It's going to get real.
Yeah, this is another question that I feel like my answer is never exciting because I actually sometimes
Are there any
if I
intersections?
talk about this live, like
Yeah,
I get like people are like what people go because I like Freud. I like Sigmund Freud.
I
There, I said it. I like
yeah
Sigmund Freud. He
yeah
was not a religious guy at all, but I have a book that's letters between him and a pastor who wanted to become an analyst within his own church, and it's really kind of beautiful. And like he's kind of like, oh, okay, well, even if you do like have this, this delusion that there's a God, yes, you can still do it. Um, and his work really makes sense to me. Um, the unconscious is a really powerful thing. And I've seen an analyst. I saw an analyst for a little while, and it changed my life. So for me, psychoanalysis and just the whole concept of therapy and what's the word I'm looking for? But psychology is very valuable, and I think they cross over. It's interesting because when the Apostle Paul says, I don't do what I want to do, I try to do the right thing, but I automatically do the wrong thing. I mean, a lot of analysts have said like that was really the first concept of the unconscious, you know. Um, so for me, those two play a big role in that. Um,
yeah
and then when you mix philosophy into that and you start mixing those things together, you start to see, oh wow, there's much bigger problems that we're often focused, on like the symptoms. We're just caught up fighting the symptoms of things.
yeah
Like, I would say like capitalism is a huge issue for everybody, and it really affects us all, and it promises us to fill a void, and it follows us to fill like the lack, and it can't, and it's
hmm
something that they've tried to do through, like, that's why there was slavery, and that's why there are all these things at the end of the day, it boils down to like people who want more money and this promise that this system, this empty promise that the system gives us. And sometimes it can seem insensitive, I think, when I talk to some people about it, because I'm like, well, I think we got to get beyond identity politics. Reverend Barber has a good book called White Poverty, where he talks about like if we really want to see the world become a better place, it won't be capable until we're able to put identity politics aside and recognize each
mm,
other's humanity and each other's right to eat and live life and not be in poverty, and to help each other out of that poverty. He talked about the experiences of these miners, and some of them were black folks and some of them were Klan folks. But none of them, were getting paid enough to feed their families. And when they came together, that most of those folks in the Klan, working next to their black brothers and sisters, realized that they were misinformed about the hate of the Klan taught, and dropped out of the Klan, just by the simple fact of they realizing like these are families and these are human beings, and
right
recognizing one another's humanity, not based on creed or color, but on the fact that we all deserve the right to be able to live life, at least the basics. So to me, that's all very powerful stuff. So I think that's somehow I brought that into the analysis, but analysis plays a part of that because you're
yeah
understanding that maybe some of these people are often fighting their own demons. It's like when you hear like a mega pastor who is completely anti-gay comes out and he was gay the whole time. You know what I mean? It's like
right
this to understand how the human mind works. People often also say, one of the things I've learned from Freud was like, people often say, well, don't show me your words, show me your actions. But I also say that you do listen to the words, but also listen to the things that people don't say. Sometimes
right
actions actually don't speak louder than words. Sometimes that person is telling us right where they're at by what they're saying or what they're not saying. And that's
Right.
been really helpful for me in my life. Boom.
Mm. It's almost
That was straight to that question.
no. That was a good answer, in the fact that identity politics comes seems like we've come a long way, and that's
I mean,
still an
this
issue.
whole section right here, from that into that frame to these sunglasses, is all Sigmund Freud.
All right, you might have a little thing for Sigmund Freud,
Yeah.
one might say. Harley asked a wonderful question here. Can religious pluralism help move the direction of a service oriented and other loving Christianity? He asks the question in such a smart way, and that's very typical of Harley and the
Yeah.
interactions that I've had with
Fantastic.
him
He's
over the
fantastic.
years. He's so smart. But religious pluralism, can religious pluralism help move the direction of a service oriented and other loving Christianity?
I hope so. And I
I
think,
think so too.
and I think it has to. I mean, if we really like, if people cherish, like, you know, if you want to be a real nationalist, if you really want to believe where is it? Is this right here? If you really want to believe in the Constitution, which I have right here, um,
Yeah,
yeah, if you really want, it has to. That's part of the
has to.
tolerance game. You're going to have to,
That's it.
like, we're going to have to move forward and help people, even if those people think we're going to hell or some other place that's really bad. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, that's just the fact. Like, oh, your religion says
Yeah.
I'm a Christian and that I'm a abomination because I believe in this God and not that God. Well, let's still work together and make this world a better for everybody who believes in whatever freaking God or spaghetti monster or no God. Yeah, you got to have that. You got to have
I
that. I mean, that.
I think so too.
So, I mean, I've gone to meet with these churches and said, hey, you should be affirming. And they go, we're not going to. And then some became a little bit more friendly, you know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I got to do something else. I'm doing this is my alternative to that. I'm not gonna try to destroy their lives because they don't agree with
Right.
me. You know,
Right.
I'm just going to continue to do this, and hopefully people see the alternative. It was so funny when people got really mad at the guy he apologized for Kiss Dating Goodbye, the author of that book,
Oh
and
yeah.
we were like, "It's too late for you. You convinced me, and I did this and that." And I told a few people, I'm like, y'all should have been listening to me because I was talking about that book being shit when it came out. I knew it 25 years before he did, you know. Now I'm not doing that to be a dick, but the reason I'm saying that is
No.
just like, one, it's never too late for grace, and I think people saying it's
That's
too
right.
late, that's a horrific thing to do. That's not a way to build a
Well,
movement
then it's
or
not
build
grace,
change.
right?
Yeah,
It's conditional.
and you can't build a change that way. When someone changes and then you punish them for changing to your way of thought, it's like, oh well, then you don't really
And you
want to
see
see
that all the
change.
time. You said this, 10 years ago, and now it comes back. You need to pay for that. And it's like, listen, I understand the reaction, but the constant gavel of justice that hangs over people that are constantly changing and getting new information and going through
Yeah.
experiences and growing.
Well, the very thing we
It
ask them to do, and then they do it, and then we punish them. I mean, to me, if that doesn't sound like the Assemblies of God Christianity I grew up in, and now I'm just seeing like super liberal folks do the same thing. It's like, guys, don't, it was Nietzsche who said, like, when one fights monsters, they must be careful not to become a monster themselves. And
celebrate the growth that
yeah,
when people are able to change,
see it as,
celebrate the
it's a
growth.
win. It's a win.
It's a win. It's a win.
Yeah.
It's a win.
So,
I agree. Well, we have two questions left, and these are all for you. They're very general, and I'm looking forward to hearing your responses. The first one is just a general how are you? Are you holding up okay?
I am exhausted. Um, there is not a month that doesn't go by that I'm worried about my kids and my house and my life. And and it's so easy for people to say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Hmm.
And it's like, I don't even have boots. You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
literally understand, like, I am living paycheck to paycheck, which is it's never been this tough. And people are like, well, give
Yeah.
up and stop doing revolution. And I'm like, if I give up and stop doing revolution, I'll be a shell. I won't be me. And I have to be me.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I am grateful for when I get these moments, the moments with my kids and the moments that I'm doing revolution are vital, important to me. I just have such hope and love in my heart for humanity that I can't, if I don't do this, I start to become bitter and the demons
Yeah.
come out. And if you want to, people can judge me any way they want about that. I'm trying my best, and you'd feel like you can't, it's like I get these jobs and then they all fall through again. And I feel like I can't do enough. I'm trying really, really hard. Um, really, really tired.
I know.
I'm so disappointed with my fellow Christians in the past. I want to be in a community, and I feel like it's nearly impossible. And so that's how I'm doing. I mean, but yesterday, I was with my kids, and we were at the trick shop, and it was great. I was doing great. But the
I know.
reality is, like, when my kids ask me for something, or when they ask me about Christmas, and they're like, why don't you just go get a job down at the factory? I've applied at the factory. I've applied at the grocery stores. I've applied at the schools, to be help with
Mm-hmm.
kids with special needs. I should have done better in school. I shouldn't have dropped out. I shouldn't have become an autodidact and taught myself how to do philosophy and theology and psychology, because I can't go in and be like, well, I've read these books. I'll send you a picture of my library, I mean,
Mm.
honestly, if there
I
was a
know.
job at a factory just putting tops on bottles or anything, I would do it. And I've applied to places like that. And I haven't got it, I've had to live off the kindness of my friends, and I've had to take loans out, and I owe people money, and I'm doing the best I can. I mean, tomorrow I just found out that the person who's been doing my taxes for the past couple of years didn't file them correctly the past 2 years, and so I have a meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to go to the doctor's office that tomorrow as well, and my insurance is shit, so it's just exhausting. It's exhausting. I was in New York, and I was like so afraid to like eat and afraid to spend money, and I had to ask somebody if they could help me out a little bit. I don't like living that way, and I'm doing my best
I
to
know.
not live that way. And it's really wild, like the lack of support you get from people around you because they just still think you're not doing enough, or you're not doing the right thing, or you didn't apply to the right job, or how you're just full of excuses. And I'm like, no wonder so many people in this country are angry and mad and tired and exhausted and not making, great decisions, you know,
Right.
because it's just really like everybody's suffering. And it's like when we start comparing our suffering to others, we
Right.
belittle our suffering. When it becomes the hierarchy of suffering, we just don't realize how devastating that is to other human beings. So
Right.
often I'll get people who want to put me in my place. Well, you're just, a white heterosexual cis pastor who's able to do, and it's like, I just have to take it because to me, that's a conversation starter. And for me, it's like, it's
Right.
really like, well, I can't really answer that because all that stuff, you're right. All those things are true, and this is the most honest I've ever answered that question. So that's,
I know.
I don't like that. I don't like to do that,
Thanks.
but that's just the
I know you
reality.
don't.
And I do that for the people watching because I think everybody's feeling that right now. They're feeling that
Well, and that's
push.
why I started there.
Yeah.
Was that there are a lot of people that think that because your face comes up on a YouTube video or something that like there's some privilege in that. But I know you.
Yeah.
I know what you've been through I mean, we've talked about the time before we knew each other, but even since then,
I mean, you took
I
me
know
to,
that.
after I tried to take my life, you took me to my electric shock therapy. I mean, and flew into town so I would have somebody to make sure I could get to my appointments. So, but, I still feel like people judge me even that, oh, you let other people help you. You know what I mean? And it's like, honestly, it's really one of those things where you just really constantly, it's like you're, you know, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
I
You
know.
know, it's like, oh well, he drowned, so he must have been a witch. You know, or it's like all these like
Yeah.
people you go into these art and this painting's worth $5 million, and they died with a can of beans and a rusted out trailer. Isn't that romantic? And it's like, no, they were freaking miserable, and they never got to see that you gave a damn
Right.
about their art. You know, it's like my mom died like almost by herself in a horrific death. You know, and it's like now
And
there's
then
been
they
like
put her
all these.
story on Broadway,
Yeah, it's on
and you
Broadway. The
forget.
actress won an Oscar for her performance of her. You know what I mean?
Right.
The makeup person won an Oscar. I mean, how ironic is
Right.
that? But I'm
Right.
just saying, it's like
I know.
people have these ideas, and it's like I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy my life. Like I got to see my amazing, wonderful girlfriend Jeanette in New York. We live long distance, and she is like she's also struggling every day to make life happen, and I'm just so grateful that we're able to be there for each other. I'm grateful for you and the conversations we have, because when we have these conversations, you're not always fixing me. I don't feel like there's always this like judgment of like, you're not doing enough. But I'd say the majority of people in my life, I do feel like they think I'm not doing enough, and so that sucks. But I'm kind of learning to just like, okay, I understand maybe why they believe that way, but I can't. I just have to accept the story I find myself in. If I don't, it will drive me insane.
I know.
Anyway, I don't
And
want
I
to
know.
stay too much on that, but yeah.
No, that's okay. Well, on the other side of that coin, the last question that we have is, what are you looking forward to?
I just like doing what I'm doing. I love my work. You know, um, at this point, I really, I used to really look forward to just even being able to go to shows and do things with my kids. But right now, it's like that's not even like. I hope that I can do things like I hope I can go see a concert, and I hope I can take out my kids to do like my ex made for me and my kids to go see a play next week, Christmas play. So I look forward to that.
Awesome.
I think it might be time for me to write a book. I wrote my autobiography at like 23. It's like
I know.
not a whole. I mean, that was a lot of hard stuff during that time, but I've learned a
Yeah,
lot more since then. And I
for
think
sure.
I'm able to see my parents in a more clear understanding of where they were at. So I think I could write about all that, especially with everybody else giving their opinion. I think it might be nice for me to say like, well, this is what happened from my point of view. So I'd like to do that. I mean, there's other books I've wanted to write, but I just don't know if that would even, I have dyslexia. I have to work with people. I have to depend on people. I mean, I
Yeah.
depend on my buddy Josh to make sure that these go up I mean, I'm now posting them to PayPal, but Facebook. No, when it's not even Facebook, I get it
Yeah.
wrong every time. I'm talking YouTube.
YouTube.
I post them on YouTube, but I don't know how to get these. I don't have a computer, so I have to, he posts them up and
Yeah.
make sure that they sound right. It's but it's right now it feels like dependence on people, but it's also like when I think back to like New York and Atlanta, it was not dependence, it was co-working, it was a team. And
Yeah.
no, I didn't feel like anybody was better than anybody. I mean, I knew that my team made me better at doing what I did, and I couldn't do it without them. Like it was like a machine. I mean, it was like we had to have
Yeah.
all the parts of the machine together, to do
Yeah.
that work and to make that work so possible, and to make it, be able to do what, for able like, hey, I want a t-shirt. This is revolutionary. We had a team, of people who knew how to do that stuff. And even you helped us back in the day with that. Or like, just like, oh, people want to have you booked. Well, I don't know how to, so somebody helped, or, hey, or like when me and Vince worked together, he was an extrovert and I was an introvert. So he would know who
Right.
everybody in the crowd by the end of my talk. So I would sit down and have conversations with people who really wanted to talk to
Yeah.
me, and we were able to carry that together. And it wasn't like, oh, my weaknesses. It was just that we were a complete community, and so that I don't know why we see that as weakness. I think it's important, but right now it feels like weakness, because it feels like I just feel maybe it's just listening to the wrong people. And it's also my own insecurities, the way I grew up and my own
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
in life, and watching my dad be almost work himself to death when I was a kid. Like I never saw my dad,
Right. But
he
he still had. I mean, think about the staff that
yeah.
your parents
And he
had.
had this
Come
huge
on.
staff, but he was still on the construction site. I mean, I remember him saying, You know, when
Absolutely.
they were trying to open up that water park and all the sand that they put all went into the pool, and he got me and him and a bunch of other people. I mean, I'm like a 10-year-old kid shoveling sand out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so there's always that kind of feeling like, well, do I need to be shoveling sands and be obsessed with my talk and obsessed with light bulbs and obsessed with, we have to pay financial people because I can't do it. So like
Right.
half the time I'm not getting paid because we got to pay the people who do our finances and make sure the taxes and all that stuff are taken care of. And it still doesn't always happen right. So, what was that last question again? I feel like I'm always going down the rabbit
What you're
trails.
looking forward,
What
what
am
you're
I
looking
looking
forward
forward to?
to.
I'm looking forward to maybe seeing Revolution get to a place where the all this isn't like these worries aren't every day. That we're a little bit like, if I was really, I mean, honestly, if I'm honest, that we're just financially stable, not a rich church, but just financially
Sure.
stable and being able to work with people I care about and
Hmm.
and work together well and able to do this for my living once again. I would like to be able to do that, or at least
Yeah.
have a second job that I'm able to do and that I'm comfortable at, and that does not affect the revolution work as well. That's something that can coexist really well. Something like that would be something I'm looking forward to, but it's hard to look forward to anything. I mean, especially with where we're at politically, it seems like the world's going to be in a really tough place. So I'm hopefully able to have a voice and help people and encourage people and do that in a way where I'm able to be where I'm able to just make, pay my, I don't live in a fancy place. You know what I mean? I don't live in a,
Yeah.
I don't live in a, I don't, none of that. I only just moved here because I wanted to move closer to my kids. And thankfully my landlord is not a company. So my landlord is, I mean, my rent is late every single month and he's cool with that. And I
Yeah.
work with him and we figure it out. I mean, he's not cool with it, but he does
Yeah.
it. And then he
Understanding.
also
Yeah.
hires me on to help do work to help ease those burdens. So I'm grateful for that. And that's the story I find myself in. Um, so who knows, but that's
I,
it.
I think if I were to be hopeful for you, I think along those same lines of the people that I know that you are reaching, that you're touching, that you're advocating for. There, I think there are a lot of people in that position of like, what can I do? What can I? How can I help? I have meager means. I'm not. I can't just fund revolution on my own.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about.
No, not
It's
at all.
I really appreciate your vulnerability and being able to say that I'm not looking to do this solo. I don't think there's no instance that I know of in any of the books, the countless biographies that I've read, the stories that I've listened to about people. Pull yourselves up by your bootstraps is a myth.
Yeah.
It takes community. It takes a wild amount of luck and timing and compassion and hard work. But I don't think that you are lacking in any one of those. And I would encourage any person that hears this to say, if there's anything small that you can do, if you're a computer guy that is good on that,
Yeah.
if you have extra finances help everybody. I mean,
Yeah. If you're a tax
we all need
accountant
them.
or I
If
mean
you're,
whatever,
yeah,
like
whatever it is,
can
but
volunteer
that's
time
what
or retweet or like and
that
subscribe
the
and all that
retweets
stuff
and
really
likes
helps.
actually
I mean, I'm not on
absolutely
Twitter anymore, but
helps.
like sharing on it, I talk about it all the time, but I can say there's probably only 2 or 3 people who actually share,
I know.
and it's free. So
Yeah,
it's hard to,
you're already watching it.
yeah, so it's hard to encourage. I mean, I get it. Life's hard, and that's not your first thought, but it
No,
goes a long
but
way. Even liking like an Instagram post and saving it helps us the algorithm, get us into the algorithm and do that.
that's
So I
right.
mean, there's no amount of help that we can't use. It doesn't just have to be bucks and dollars. You know what I mean? It can just be sharing it with
Right.
people or helping, just liking, just put a heart in a freaking. That's it. So I don't know.
Um,
I don't want this to be. I didn't mean this to be a telethon. Um,
no, but the
Revolution will still
I mean,
exist. It's just going to exist how it has
right.
to exist. It's going to survive living life on life's terms, and that's what I've always done. I feel like it was
And
easier when we just had to put flyers out. Now with being online, it's like can't figure this algorithm out at all.
I know it's for smarter younger people than I think you and I,
Yeah,
but again, here we are. I'm I'm thankful for you, and I love you, and I'm so glad for this
too.
time. And
This was your idea.
I'm all, well,
This Q&A was.
I wanted to speak to my friend, and I know a lot of people always have questions for you, and buddy, you know, I'm here for you, and I know so many are too, and I love you and your family so much, and I hope we get to do this again soon, and
Me too.
I hope that that you and I get to see each other soon.
Me
That'd be
too.
fun.
That would be awesome. Just chill.
We'll figure it out.
Get some banana pudding.
Well, thanks so much for the time. And for
Yep.
everybody that submitted a question, thank you so much too. We'll figure out how to get this online between a bearded Wolverine and Jamie Charles Bakker. We'll figure out how to get this up and tag you and post your comments, or I don't know, try to figure out where your questions are in the mix. But please keep the questions coming. We'll do this again.
Yeah, definitely. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.